My name is Joshua, and I am the Tribune. God's assignments and preparation stages and commissions have different levels of importance at any given time throughout the process. So we have to make sure that we know how to catch his rhythm and understand his schedule so that we can understand what is important to him at any given time, because we could be doing something we think is so important, but it's not to him at that time, even though it is an important task. How he shows us his rhythm and teaches us how to discern his schedule for your life is he gives us confirmations on these things. He speaks to us. This is why it's very important to hear him very clearly, because if you don't have an ear to hear him, then you are not going to be able to catch his rhythm and understand his schedule. Now, you don't need to understand the full schedule because you won't. That's impossible. All our job is to do is to understand what he's asking us to do in this time and in this season, and which assignments are important to him at certain times in the day, in the week, in the month, and in the year. So when he gives confirmations on these things, we need to pay close attention, because the level of confirmation will show you how important it is to him at this time, so you can rank his assignments and then you can piece them together and advance to the next stage. Because each time you move forward in a thing with God that he's asking you to do, it will lead to the next thing, and that thing will lead to the next thing. But there's a big problem for us, not for him. If we don't get a certain principle down, this principle that I'm going to talk about in this video, then we will not be at peace when we're working with God, and we absolutely will not be able to align with his schedule. If he gives confirmations for us to catch his rhythm, we have to ask ourselves, why does he do that? Which it means it's not obvious. That's the first reason. It's not obvious what he's asking us to do. You cannot look at God's rhythm and schedule as something that's going to be obvious like a human. It's not. He's going to ask you things that don't make sense. He's going to ask you to do things that don't align with what you think you should do. This is why you need to see his confirmations and pay close attention to them. So if we understand this principle, that this is how he operates, and that we need to hear his voice and move forward based off his confirmation and his levels of confirmation, and that we need to categorize his assignments so that we know which one to do when, then that means we understand that we are going to have to move when we don't fully understand what he's saying and we don't understand the whole picture. This is the point that we need to talk about in this video, because he wants his people to know that you don't have to understand every single thing that he wants you to do in the future for you to do what he's asking you to do right now. This is key, because he is watching to see, are you going to move forward blindly, trusting me that I know what my schedule is, and I know what my rhythm should be, and I won't miss my schedule, and I care about my schedule more than you do. He's watching to see if you believe that. And as you prove that to him, he will give you more pieces of the puzzle to show you that he is God and to show you that he knows what he's doing. So the next question would be, how do you prove to God that you believe that he is God in these schedules and that he has everything organized and he will not let you fall and ruin the schedule? You move forward when you really don't understand even the next step. You do the step that he asks in that moment, and from there, you trust that he's going to tell you the next step when you get to that step. You don't have to know 5 steps ahead. This is something that caused me a lot of problems in my journey with God in the beginning, because I really wanted to know 10 steps. And I wouldn't move on the first step, even if I knew what he was saying, unless he told me what step 7 was, because I don't want to just do these steps and waste my time. And then I get here and something doesn't happen like I think it should happen. When I responded like that to his instructions, you know what he did? Nothing. He just sat there and waited for me. And God is very patient. And he has more time than we do. So he just waited, and I realized he's going to make sure that I do that first step. Because every time I go to pray to him and ask God, what are we doing? He's like, well, go back, and I told you about that step. You didn't even do it. I'm not going to give you number 2 even without you doing number 1. This is very important because we think this is just a linear journey where it's just going to be exactly how we think it's going to go. And we don't understand that he might have us doing 7 step 1s at the same time. This is key because if we don't understand that he doesn't have just one plan for us, he might have us doing 10 different things that have different steps, and we're going to have to juggle those things with him. So what he does is he starts training us with one thing first. So I want to encourage you, if you have one thing that God's asked you to do, you need to do that thing with all of your heart and all of your might and all of your attention without thinking about the next step, because that will bring the next step. And after you get this rhythm with him where you know, I can hear you, God, and you can tell me what to do when, and you see him prove himself to you, which he will absolutely, then he will start giving you extra assignments, and he will say, I can trust this person to know exactly when to do what because they're always listening to me, and I can give them 7 different amazing things, and on one I'll be at level 1 with him, and then I'll jump over to the other thing and be at level 5 with him, and then the thing over here I'm at 10, and this thing I'm just about to finish, and I'm only able to juggle those things and manage that and fit into his schedule because I can hear him, and he's telling me which thing to do each day and each hour and each season. It's impossible to fail in preparing with God and even advancing in his purpose for your life if you get this correct. So for example, sometimes God will test me. We'll be setting everything up for these shoots, putting everything together, putting everything up, getting ready to get on the camera, and he'll say, nothing. I don't even know when I'm at home before I get here. I don't even know sometimes what he's going to have me say. He doesn't even give me a topic yet. This is a test. This is to see if will you still move forward not knowing what I want to say, and trust that when I want to speak, I will make sure that I will speak. And you go through the process of preparing when you don't really know if it's going to really work out how you think it should. And you go through all the steps of preparing, and he meets you right at the perfect time to make sure that you know he's always right there and he knows what he's doing. This helps you with anxiety. This conquers fear. This relieves things like nervousness. Why should I be nervous? For what? My God meets me. There's no point to be nervous for anything. And this is why he says in the scripture that we really shouldn't have anxiety. Because if we trust that he knows what he's doing, then what's the point of worrying or having any kind of anxiety? Because we know even if something goes wrong, it looks like, we know that he will absolutely make it right. And we will actually start thanking him for what went wrong. So this message is about making sure that we are comfortable in moving forward without knowing everything. In my past videos, I've talked so much about God speaking to you and giving you blueprints and outlining this and that and saying, okay, move in this direction and this step is this way. But one thing that we needed to touch on is that process comes in steps, and you do not know what's the next step most of the time. Maybe you can sense something is next. You can sense that he's going to do something powerful, but you might not know exactly how or what necessarily. So all you need to do is be obedient. This is why he wants friends. He wants you to hear his voice, be his friend, understand that he is your loving father, and he will cover you and make sure that you will get his stuff done. This is how you start having a wonderful time with God. Because in the times where you don't know what he's doing, maybe he's trying to give you rest. Maybe he doesn't want you to think about it right now. Because something about God's stuff is when he speaks something to you, it consumes you. It consumes you because he needs it to, and he wants it to, and it's impossible not to. When he talks to you, it's not like a human talking to you. He speaks directly to your core. He touches your heart. He fills your spirit with power and strength. So sometimes when he's quiet, I just relax and thank him for the rest, knowing that if he would tell me something, I wouldn't be able to rest. There's times when God is doing something so powerful and awesome that you won't be able to sleep for weeks. Not because it's bad, but because it's so good. You're so excited. So there's many different reasons why he does this. Another reason why he does it is because maybe the thing he's going to tell you, you won't think you can do, and the next 3 steps you think will be impossible. So what he does is he said, just focus on this step, and when you focus on this step, I will meet you right when you finish. I will open up the next door that's impossible to open up. This is how our God is. And that's the best way. He knows the best way to do that for each person. He knows what each person can handle. He knows what will keep you at a certain level of peace. So this principle is a blessing. You shouldn't look at it as I'm super anxious because I don't know what's next. No. I'm at peace because he knows what's next. He knows what's going to happen on the exact moment 10 years later that I'm not even thinking about. He's already there. He's already planning. That's another beautiful thing about preparing with God, is that when you're planning something, you don't have to worry about where to put it because he knows where to put it. This releases your creative ceiling. You don't have a creative ceiling when you're working with God. This is how you actually operate through this in a practical way. I'll give you another example. When God presented me my uniform, I didn't know where I was going to use this. Where in the world would I be able to wear this uniform that makes sense? That was my question. So he had the entire thing made. He had everything made. Everything was finished before I knew what he was going to do with it. And I was just obedient, followed every single instruction, and then I had a full uniform. Because he wanted it. Because this expresses who I am on the inside. In him. I felt like somebody who lives way out in some primitive jungle somewhere, and God just drops down a McDonald's uniform. They just drop down a McDonald's uniform, the arches, they've never seen any of that stuff. They're literally eating plants and roots out of the ground. And God says, just save that, put it on, and just start getting comfortable in that. The person can't even speak English, maybe. They're literally concerned about the tiger that's in that bush over there, and I almost stepped on a snake. And you gave me this McDonald's uniform. I don't even know what this even means. I've never even seen these colors before. I'm used to earth tones. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about this person, this example, who's in this jungle, and God just drops down a random uniform that is in a city job or something like that. They wouldn't know what to do with it. And a side note, people might be surprised. This is just a side note. I wear my uniform everywhere. I don't wear any other clothes. My uniforms, these are my clothes. So people who see me out there, they're shocked that I'm wearing my uniform sometimes. But this is who I am. So I'm going to wear it boldly and proudly. So when God is moving you forward in your purpose, you should practice being comfortable in what I'm teaching you right now. You need to practice moving forward, not knowing what's going to happen next. Excuse me. And to make sure that you are doing each step the best you can do, even if you don't know what that step's going to do for you next. That's my next point. You need to make sure that you have excellence on each step, because that excellence is going to transfer over to the next step. If you do subpar work on the first step, then you cannot do great work on the next step. And if you don't do great work on the next step, then the whole thing is going to be totally ruined. And God will not allow that. He was not going to allow something that's subpar. He needs excellence. This is another thing that we don't see in our world right now regarding God working through people with their creativity. I'm talking about people who are working and boldly proclaiming they're working with Jesus Christ, the God of the universe. We don't see this because we, as Christians in this world right now, we do too many subpar things. We do inferior work. That's another reason why he is very angry in this time. And he's going to start cleaning house. Because he is not going to allow these leaders, these so-called leaders of the church, to represent him in a banal, subpar, foolish, stupid way. This includes all sectors. As you know, I'm passionate about entertainment, so that's one of the things that's the first thing I think about, is all these terrible Christian movies, horrible Christian entertainment that I wouldn't even show my dog. So we have to make sure that we're performing each step with excellence so that we can move forward in the final piece and his final agenda, when we accomplish that thing with him, becomes that excellent thing that he had in mind. This is crucial. The way to do it is to make sure, even if you think the step is not too important, you can't even see how it would connect with anything, you need to do that with all your heart. And this is how God is very pleased with us, and he starts to trust us with greater things, and you will be trusting him more because you will see him prove that he is watching even with those things that you don't think are too important. You should be striving to be in a place with God where you don't have anxiety when you don't know what's next. You should not have any worries about this. It's for your own benefit. It's not for him. It's for you. Because he's stable. And he will get his stuff done. If your anxiety stops you from working on his stuff, he'll reassign you. You will be moved off the project. Period. There's nothing you can do about that. The only thing you can do is start being at peace and practicing your peace. And even if you do execute these things well, and he moves you to the next step, but you have so much anxiety about the next step, you are going to be tormented, which affects many things in your life. It'll rob your relationships. It'll rob your rest. It'll rob your energy. There's so many things that anxiety from what I'm talking about right now will destroy. And it will only destroy you and maybe the people you love and your relationship with God and you working with God on his commissions. So please let this message be not only a warning for you for working with God and how it feels throughout the process, but let it encourage you, because it's the most beautiful thing to accomplish with God when you can have peace with not knowing while you're working and advancing in his mission. This is God's word for today. And you should be paying close attention to this in your life. It will give you so much power and peace. And this is what we're after. Because those two things mean that you are working with the Almighty God and your relationship is growing with him in such a way that he is the closest to you more than anybody and any human that you can ever imagine or think about. More than your parent, more than your spouse, more than your best friend, more than any family member. This is our God. He is the highest and he is the best. Hail Jehovah.